Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. I hope you are all doing well. We are back on the silicone inlays in today's video. This is a solid plastic form for a chocolate mold. It is still available on Amazon right now. I did double check, but of course I'm going to be using it for silicone inlays. I will link it down below. You don't really want to use resin with this. I've never tried, but I just feel like they would fuse together, so at your own risk. The silicone rubber I'm using is of course the Let's Resin silicone rubber. I am an ambassador for Let's Resin and their silicone rubber, so again, I love nothing more than making a good old silicone inlay, especially at Halloween. This silicone rubber is measurable 1:1 by weight, and that is exactly what I'm doing here. Believe it or not, guys, I made a bit too much. Oh, one day I'll get it right. Today was not the day, but I did make way too much. So again, part A, part B, both went up to 97, 98 grams each. Way too much for this silicone mold, and into that I'm putting in some purple mica powder. I like to colour my silicone inlays for the seasons, so Halloween usually gets green or purple inlays. I figured I'd put both in on this one. Now the silicone rubber from Let's Resin can be coloured with any mica powder, which makes it super fun. You don't just have to stick to the boring white. So yeah, mixing this for 5 minutes, 5 solid minutes. Do not scrimp on that. It has to be 5. Make sure you scrape the edges, scrape the bottom, make sure both part A and B have been fully combined before you pour it. Now you can put this through the bubble removing machine as well if you are selling your silicone molds, or if you're selling your silicone inlays. I would recommend putting them through a bubble removing machine. This is yeah, what it said on the screen. It's time to demold. I want to say it's a few hours later. Okay, it was the next day. It's obviously been at least a week since I filmed this, at least a week. So yeah, remembering is hard for me. That's why I put words on the screen, by the way, guys. If you're wondering why I put so much words on the screen, it's because I don't remember that day. I don't remember. So peeling them out was super easy. All came out beautifully. The mold is still solid and ready to be used again. I wouldn't now use that for food items. I would make sure that I only ever use that for silicone inlays. Now, we are looking at foils. I decided instead of going with my standard usual witchy foils, I'm gonna go down a more pretty route. Now, I have all of these foils that came along from Shein. It took way over a month to get to me. So again, this is all very last minute usage. I was thinking of going down a flowery rose route. So that kind of like romantic Valentine's. Again, temporary tattoos would work on the back of these. I decided to do something I've never used on my channel before, and that is butterflies. I don't think you've ever seen a video of me using butterflies in all of the years I've been on YouTube. I'm not really a huge butterfly person, but these foils are so pretty, and I thought, you know, it is going to add that spooky but pretty, delicate, feminine touch to this tray. So again, yeah, we're going butterflies. Now, the resin I'm using in today's video is the Apex, so I, of course, have put on my PPE. Details for Apex resin will be in the description box below alongside your code. And I'm using this huge cup for measuring it out. I want to pretty much fill up this mold, leaving around about 3 millimeters gap at the top. So the entire mold is getting filled up with clear. I did put it through the Let's Resin bubble removing machine just because there was so much resin. Of course, I got bubbles in it. I don't mix slow enough, and it wasn't hot enough for this resin to not need the bubble removing machine, but it did a great job, and here I am putting bubbles back into it. I don't know why I've started doing this. I just feel like it makes a bit of a difference, especially as this absolutely stunning, I don't know if I've spoken about the mold I'm using. Sorry guys, I'm using the elongated druzy edge mold from Moulds and Shapes. Again, that will be linked below. It has a stunning diamond-esque cut druzy edge. It is beautiful. It's just filled with nooks and crannies. So just rubbing my finger along, making sure that that resin gets into all of those nooks and crannies, I just feel like it's doing a better job for me. Now I've pretty much filled up this mold bar 3mm, so now I am hitting it with my heat gun, getting rid of any more potential air bubbles that may have surfaced when I was playing around with the resin. And I do spend quite a bit of time doing this. I also feel like Apex resin is one of those resins that you can pour at 9 a.m. and like demold at 4 p.m. It's such a fast curing resin. I don't know if anyone else talks about it, but when you use heat with the Apex, honestly, you can demold like 8 hours later, in my experience, personal experience. So it's time to put the inlays down, and I did the trick that Wendy from Toonpish Crafts taught us all, and that is to use a little spray of isopropyl alcohol on the surface of the inlay. But because these have got deep divots, like the eyes, the nose, the teeth and all that, I want to make sure that they just don't create huge air pockets in my piece, which they would if I didn't put resin on the top. Now, my original plan was this: 5 in a row. It has to be 5 or 3. The tray is big enough to handle 5. So I wanted to make this quite formal. So 5 skulls directly in a row across the center of the tray. Now, I did spend a little bit of time on this. I flipped them upside down. I was worried that I'd get air bubbles in the eye sockets, which I did, but they're not that noticeable. And just played around with placement. I was trying so hard to get them absolutely central, in a straight line, central. And it was a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. So after a lot of back and forth, like what if they move when I'm out of the room, it's better for me to go random. At this point, I threw out my rules and I just said, just chuck them in. Put them in a random order, some upside down, some round the right way, because then it doesn't matter what angle you're looking at the tray, you've got a skull facing you. And this is what I left it as. And it was just keep your fingers crossed. So here we are, 8 hours later. 8 hours, and I can demold and I can carry on with the next layer of this tray. These came out like a dream. I mean, inlays always do, unless you accidentally bury them in the resin and then you've got trouble on your hands. But luckily they're so big and chunky and hunky, they're not going to sink because there's not enough resin in the tray for that to happen. I am using the Plum Chameleon from Let's Resin to dust the skulls. And at this point, I'm only filling up the skulls. The rest of this tray is going to get a clear layer, of course, because we're using those foils. So again, the plum, such a gorgeous colour, such a witchy Halloweeny colour, and it's just going into the skulls. Now, here's the thing. I've made an error. It's not a big error. It does not take away from the final piece. The final piece is absolutely right up my street. I love it. But because this is only 8 hours later, the resin isn't 100% fully plastic hard cured, right? I could still dent it with my fingernail if I tried to, which meant that when it came to cleaning the surface, not all of that powder was happy to come away. Now, if this was fully 24 hours later, fully cured plastic hard, that would just wipe off like a dream. But because the surface is somewhat sticky still, the powder didn't all want to come off and give me that beautiful, clean aesthetic. So if you have the time, definitely leave it 24 hours before you put any chameleon powder in. Now, at this point, I am using epoxy resin to fill up the backs of the skulls. Now, usually you guys know me, I choose the fast route. I'll often go for a polyurethane at this point. But because this epoxy resin is not yet fully 24 hours, 48 hours cured, I was a bit worried that using polyurethane at this stage would hinder the curing process of the poly or the resin, right? I didn't want to bury polyurethane inside of 2 layers of epoxy resin. I didn't know how it would react. It's definitely something to try one day, but I just didn't want to risk it. So at this point, I'm using epoxy resin with black Vista liquid pigment in those skulls. And I just had a little bit of a cleanup here to do because, again, inlays are great, but sometimes they're a little bit uneven. Sometimes you think you've got a nice flat surface to fill them up, and then you see the resin pouring out the sides. So a little bit of a cleanup here with a wet wipe. Of course, you could use cotton buds, you could use any system you want. And I left this to cure for 24 hours. This is 24 hours later. I'm just giving that surface another rub with some isopropyl alcohol and a wipe to get rid of more of that purple. Honestly, no more of it came off. It was well and truly stuck on that tacky resin. So at this point, it's time to put down the foils, and we just want a super thin layer. Like I said earlier in the video, I've only got 2 or 3 mils to play with at this point. So you really don't want much because we've still got 2 layers of resin to go down in this tray. The first layer being this, completely clear. This is going to allow us to put our foils in. Now, these are stickers, but not today. I'm not using them as stickers. I'm simply not peeling them back. I am laying them as is, as they are, as they came, straight down into the resin. A, it's going to give a much neater finish. B, you're not going to see the edges of them at all because they disappear so much easier. And C, there's no C. It's just the way it is. I put quite a few down. I was looking at the designs, making sure that I got a combination of both big and small butterflies in there because I was just looking for that maximum coverage. Very, very similar to what I did with the perfume bottle silicone inlays and the round foils on the background. Similar kind of thing. I want to pack it in there. I want a lot of visual interest, a lot of shimmer, a lot of gorgeous reflectiveness when we do finally, eventually demold this piece. So here we are. Butterflies are down. I'm just playing around, making sure that I've got them exactly where I want them before I leave the room and walk away for another 24 hours. And that is the worry, that they're all going to move. So do babysit your resin for a while, keep your eye on it and make sure that they don't budge overnight and you come back to a whole cluster of butterflies. So 24 hours later, everything is fully cured, and we are dusting the entire back in that Let's Resin Plum. Started off with a small brush, very soon went onto a big fat fluffy makeup brush because got time for that. And I am simply dusting the back. Now this is hopefully going to tie in with the skulls, make everything work together, but those butterfly foils are going to be fully visible because they are now fully cured in that clear layer of resin. And yeah, I was super excited at this point to see what the end result would be. Let me know if you guys have made any silicone inlays this year, and yeah, tag me in your photos as well. So next up, now this was a bit of a fruitless task. I wanted to lift some powder off. Now this was a technique that I learned from Wendy. Again, Wendy at Two Pish Crafts. She uses packing tape or duct tape or, you know, any kind of tape scrunched up in a ball, and she lifts powder from the surface. So in my eyes, I didn't do this very well. First and foremost, you can see here the gaps. You can see the gaps now. I've only done it on the butterfly wings. Now, in my eyes, I'm thinking now the butterfly wings are going to be a combination of the plum chameleon powder from Let's Resin and jet black. You'll see the jet black through the wings of the butterflies. But you don't really. So I didn't do a very good job of it. Now this is a solid 24 hours later that I've dusted the back of the mould. So at this point, I'm very happy to use polyurethane to finish it off because of course this has already been a few days in the making. So I am mixing up my black Polycraft. Now I did buy this from MB Fiberglass. You mix it for 30 seconds and then you're ready to demold whatever you've made within 30 minutes, 45 minutes maximum. Depends how deep you're pouring. But yeah, it's great. It's absolutely perfect. If you just want to finish something off or just put a black back coat on something, then this is it. Now, I want to say I mixed up exactly what I needed this time. Sometimes it happens, guys. But I didn't. you can see it just start to go out over the edge. So maybe 2 grams more than I needed, but it did the job, and it just means we're going to have to carve those edges back. Now this is 1 hour later because I used polyurethane, and oh my gosh, she's a beauty. She's an absolute beauty. That edge, that clear edge is absolutely stunning for me. It works. This is the first time I haven't put anything down in the edge, just purely 100% clear resin. And of course that plum chameleon has given it this almost purpley, coppery, amber, pink, orangey shade, because of course that's reflecting down through the druzy edge. Love, love, love. We've got a huge chunky air bubble there. Honestly, you think you're doing it right. You think you're laying them down all right, and you've just got this huge, huge bubble. Now I can see the edge of these butterflies, which I was not expecting. I was not expecting to be able to see the edges, but we can. It's a shame. It doesn't, again, I don't think it takes away from the end result. The edges were killer. I decided not to use my sanding tool on this one because they were huge overspills, like thick ledges. So I decided to get in there and hack, and I mean hack them off first with my deburring tool before just going over lightly over the edge with the sander, and it came out perfect. Absolutely perfect. No more sharp edges. But yeah, I absolutely love this one. I'm a bit sad I can see the outlines of the butterflies, but that's okay. I could have peeled them back and just used the sticker, but I would have still seen the outlines of those butterflies, and I was a bit worried about, using them as stickers. But let me know your thoughts. Now, the one thing I will say is that the skulls look like a completely different colour to the background, even though I've used exactly the same colour in both. That might have something to do with dusting it onto partially cured resin and dusting it onto fully cured resin. So there might be a difference there too. Let me know if you experience that when you use chameleon powders. But I hope you have loved this one. I hope you think it's as kind of gothic pretty as I was going for. Hope you feel inspired. I think I might have already said that, and I will see you all in the next video, which is my final video of 2025. And like, honestly, if you enjoyed the Forest Witch Apothecary pendants, you will absolutely love my final video. I have honestly not scrimped on this one. This is a big one. We're chucking it all in. We're going huge Forest Witch Apothecary vibes with a huge tray. So please join me in my final Halloween video. I will see you then. Bye.